Good morning, boys and girls. It's been a year since COVID-19 started keeping us at home. And over this last year, I've been recording children's stories right here like this for you. But today, there's something different about the setup. See if you can't figure it out, and I'll tell you at the end of our story. When my dad and mom graduated from Atlantic Union College, they moved to Anchorage, Alaska to become teachers. And during the school year, they would work hard to teach the kids and PE and the different things. But during the summer, when they weren't teaching, they still needed money. So my dad would go to Juneau, Alaska, where my uncle lived, and he taught too. But during the summer, they would both get together in Juneau and build houses. Only a couple, 2 or 3 houses were they were able to build during the summer. But it was enough to be able to give them a little extra money to help deal with other projects back at their own house. Well, this one summer, my dad and my uncle had been working hard all week long. For several weeks, they'd been working hard. But at the end of this one week, my uncle said, "We need a break. Let's go fly in my airplane up one of the river valleys and camp out on some river bar." My dad's like, "That sounds great, Fred. Let's do that." And they grabbed their tent, their sleeping bags, food, a rifle, and a fishing pole, and they put it all into the tiny little airplane, and they squeezed in. They closed the door, and my dad had to be very careful not to bump shoulders with my uncle. He didn't want to mess up my uncle's flying of his plane. They took off from the Juneau airport. They climbed out. And as they climb out, they could see down on the water down below. You could see whales sometimes swimming down there in the ocean. They could see bears sometimes along the rivers. It was a beautiful way to let your problems just kind of melt away as you climbed up higher. Well, they didn't go up too high, but they got up high enough so they'd be nice and safe and they could see well, and they started flying up a river valley. And this river valley meandered around from the way the glaciers made it hundreds and thousands of years ago, and they slowly make their way up. And as they get up further, my uncle decides to come down lower and see what they can see. They saw several bears in the valley eating the huckleberries, and they occasionally could see fish jumping in the river. As they got up along further, my uncle said, "I think around this next bend, there's a spot where we might be able to land." And sure enough, as they went around the next bend, they looked, and there was an area where the river had taken all the brush away from the rocks, and they left a long area exposed of just rocks. Well, before they could land on that rocky beach, my uncle took his airplane down low to take a look. And he's looking, everything looks okay. There's no big rocks. There's no logs in our way. And as he gets low at the end of it, he pulls back up and goes out, turns around, comes back down the valley. And as he's coming back down the valley, he's looking down again to where he's going to land. And he sees that right before where they're going to land, there's a bear eating huckleberries. But the bear is out of the way. But my uncle put that away and said, "I'm going to remember where that bear is." My uncle flew his airplane down, turned around, got nice and low, was right over above the water, and lands right on all those rocks. Nice little landing. Comes to a stop. It's nice, safe. They can get out again if they need to, easy enough. The airplane can take off. They unload the airplane and set up camp. They go a little ways from the airplane, find a nice flat spot, set up the nice orange tent with the poles and the string, and they have it all nice and set up, and they put their sleeping bags inside of it, and now it's time to go get dinner. So my uncle has the shotgun with him, and his fishing pole goes down to the river to go fish. Now, what else do you think likes fish? Yeah, I think you're right. But my uncle didn't see any bears while he was fishing. Later that evening, when they got the fish back to camp, a little ways from the tent, they built a fire. They roasted the fish. And after dinner, they sat around the fire a long time. During the summer, the sun doesn't set very early, so they were out quite a while. They never did see the bear the rest of that night. But when it time to go to bed that night, My uncle said, let's take the rifle into the tent with us. So, after cleaning up and moving the fish a long ways away from camp, tidying up everything, making sure everything's nice and secure in either the airplane or in the tent, my uncle and my dad go into the tent, and in short order, they were both sawing logs. You know what I mean, right? After a long day of running around, you kids get tired, right? Well, that's the way my dad and my uncle slept. They slept like little boys and girls, tucked away after a long, hard day of play or work. Early the morning, after the sun had come up a little ways and my dad was still trying to sleep in, he heard a funny sound. And he wasn't really awake, so he rubs his eyes, and after you wake up a little bit more, your ears start working a little better. And then my dad heard a sound that made his eyes get huge. He heard, brum, brum. Oh my goodness, what do you think that was? Well, my dad couldn't see what it was because he was inside the tent, inside his sleeping bag, and he couldn't see outside the tent. But my dad immediately leaned over and tried to nudge my uncle awake. Fred, 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 wake up! And my uncle kind of wakes up, and then that sound was even closer, and my uncle immediately woke up and his eyes got big too. Pretty soon that sound came again, and this time it actually brushed right up against the tent. That's sound. Oh my goodness. Both my dad and my uncle, who'd been dead asleep minutes ago, were now wide awake, scared for their life. They could not see what the problem is, but they thought they know what that problem was. My uncle slowly unzipped his sleeping bag, slowly reached for the rifle, slowly got out of the sleeping bag, slowly, quietly unzipped his tent, both the bottom and then the top of the tent, and he gets all ready, and then in one quick motion jumps out, and then with his voice super loud yells, "Scare bear, scare bear!" And you know what he saw? A tiny little hummingbird goes vroom and flies away. My uncle and my dad felt so foolish. All that scare, all that worry, all that concern, all for a tiny little hummingbird. We have problems in our lives, kids, and we will have problems from the day you're a small kid until you're 160. Some of those problems will be quite small, but they won't feel like it when we're in the middle of it. Sometimes you might lose your favorite Matchbox toy, or can't find the shirt for your doll, or you can't get your favorite ice cream flavor. Those are kind of small problems, aren't they? But they feel big when we're in the middle of them. Well, I want you to know that God is with you. He knows and He cares about even those small problems. He knows and will care no matter if the problem is the size of a hummingbird or the size of a giant grizzly bear. Jesus will always be with you. Did you figure out what changed? Yeah, the pillow changed. Usually we have this pillow up. That feels better. Don't forget, no matter the size of your problem, whether it be a hummingbear size or a bear size, God is with you. Have a happy Sabbath.